Senator from Rhode Island.
Mr. President, before I begin my remarks with respect to the current debate, let me pay tribute to Officer Jacob J. Chestnut and Detective John M. Gibson of the Capitol Police, and to all the Capitol Police officers, men and women who protect us each day. I was here on that somber day when these gentlemen sacrificed their lives to protect innocent people in this building. And their example continues to sustain us and inspire us. And they continue, I think, to sustain and inspire the Capitol Police officers, which today are protecting us, and we thank them all. Mr. President, as my colleague from West Virginia just commented upon, we are in the midst of a very serious debate with huge consequences for our country, our economy, our future. And I rise today in support of the Middle Class Tax Relief Act. This bill will extend the 2001, 2003, and 2009 tax cuts for the middle class through 2013. It will provide tax relief to every American, especially to those families who have struggled through this recession and this weak recovery, and restore some fairness to the tax code by letting the top rates return to the Clinton-era levels of taxation. If we do not extend these tax cuts for the middle class, a typical Rhode Island family of four could see their taxes raised by an average of $2,200 in 2013. And this is not fair to middle-income Rhode Islanders, middle-income Americans. Unfortunately, I fear many, if not all, of my Republican colleagues will block this bill because it doesn't extend additional tax cuts for taxpayers that make over $250,000. Instead, they will continue to press for a proposal that doubles down on the failed policies of the Bush era for a plan that gives more tax cuts to the wealthy while eliminating middle-class tax breaks like improved tax credits for families with children. Indeed, one of the astounding things about the proposal that it will, if you look closely, actually increase the tax burden on middle-income Americans. The bill that we propose will benefit every single taxpayer in America. It's only when someone exceeds $250,000 in income that the top two rates will revert back to the Clinton-era levels. And we have a progressive tax system. Everyone, including the richest Americans, will continue to enjoy the tax reductions that were made beginning in the early 2000 period, but particularly those middle-income Americans who make less than $250,000 in family income. In fact, the vast majority of Americans will avoid an increase and see their rates remain the same. The top 2% of earners, approximately 2.1 million households out of more than 100 million households, have disproportionately benefited from the Bush tax cuts for more than a decade. They will get to maintain their benefits up to $250,000, but after that, they will see an increase. This is the nature of our progressive tax system, one which, for generations, has spread the burden across income levels, making sure and trying very hard to make sure that middle-income Americans don't shoulder a disproportionate burden of the taxes and the need to support this government. One of the key facts is that what we have observed now for more than a decade is that these Bush tax cuts have been very costly. They have contributed to this deficit. In addition to unpaid conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq, increase in entitlement programs, particularly a prescription drug program that was not paid for. All of these have led to this deficit. At least with this proposal, we're beginning to try to reverse that trend, and do so, I think, in a principled way. The wealthiest, those who enjoy the greatest economic privilege in the country, I think should shoulder some of the responsibility, some of the effort to help us begin to repair this deficit, which has grown over the last 10 years. The Democratic bill will cost the federal government $249 billion in lost revenue for a one-year extension. The Republican bill will cost $405 billion. So again, if you're talking about people who are trying to get a handle on the deficit, just compare a bill for $249 billion, which is expensive, but quite a bit less than $455 billion, which the Republican plan would cost. And I don't think, again, our nation can afford an additional $405 billion going forward. There has been a proposal or a mantra that has been emanating for the last decade that these tax cuts create jobs and they contribute to our prosperity. But I think what we've seen, particularly over the 8 years of the Bush administration, is that the evidence suggests, since as President Bush left office, we were losing on the order of hundreds of thousands of jobs a month, that there's very little correlation between these claims and the economic reality we face. Indeed, if we don't have the resources to invest in the country, in our infrastructure, in our education, in the health of our people, we won't have the economic dynamism needed to be competitive and give our children the future that they deserve. Indeed, frankly, the future that our parents gave to us. And they did it in the context of federal tax policies which were fairer, which were more progressive, in my view, and which allowed investment and job growth to be significant. And so in my state, with a 10.9% unemployment rate and a national unemployment rate above 8%, it's imperative that we embrace fiscal policy that provides further stimulation for our economic activities, but also recognizes the need to begin to reduce this deficit. And again, I think the proposal that we have advanced to allow the continuation of tax cuts for those making under $250,000 does both of those things. Provides fiscal stimulation as well as beginning to tackle this issue of how, over the next several months and years, we begin to address the deficit. We've offered a plan that will, I think, preserve and hopefully create jobs. We've pressed for policies that will provide more of an economic bang for the buck. Policies like the extension of unemployment benefits, other policies that have been able to maintain demand in our economy so households can go out and go to the store and shop and keep our economy moving forward. What I think we have to do is go forward, support this effort, begin the hard and difficult task of not only continuing to support middle-income families, but can begin to address the issue of deficit. I hope that my colleagues don't block this effort. I hope that my colleagues don't, once again, decide that doing nothing is a viable alternative to helping middle-income Americans and helping our economy overall. We have seen that in the past. Early this month, the Republicans blocked a bill that cut taxes for small businesses that hired new workers. The bill was estimated to create 1 million jobs nationally, could have created about 3,500 jobs in my state, and it was blocked procedurally. And last week, the Republicans blocked a bill that would have given tax cuts to businesses that brought jobs to the United States and closed tax loopholes for companies that send jobs overseas. That was blocked also. So I believe the record's clear. We have been trying, week in and week out, to create jobs here at home, to make our tax system fairer, to give middle-income families a break, and to begin to be fiscally responsible with respect to our deficit. The vote that will be upon us shortly, I hope, is a vote that we can prevail and go forward together and enact this policy. It will be, I think, a first step towards the larger issues that alluded to by my colleague from West Virginia, dealing with the potential of sequestration at the end of this year, dealing with the issue of policies over several years that will grow our economy while beginning to restrain our deficit and indeed provide a more stable, more sustainable economic environment for all Americans. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would yield the floor.